Hey there, Year 11s. It's time to talk about task number 2, which is all about historical empathy. Empathy is a word that you might have heard before, but it basically refers to someone's capacity to identify with and understand and be sensitive to another person's point of view, or their emotions, or their feelings, or circumstances. If you're in Mr. Bradley's English class, you might be reading To Kill a Mockingbird, and there's a character there, Atticus Finch, who describes empathy really well. He says that it's like unzipping the skin, somebody stepping inside and walking around in their shoes. He puts it another way, that you don't really know what someone's life is like until you have walked a mile in their shoes, and that's what I'll be asking you to do in this task. So we've been studying the Vietnam War, we've been studying the impact of the conflict on the Vietnamese population, we've looked at the impact on the American and Australian populations back home, and for all parties, basically, the Vietnam War seemed like a pointless war, basically a whole heap of bloodshed, a complete waste of life, just for the sake of trying to stop the communist evil from spreading from Russia through China and then down through Southeast Asia. And so this task is going to ask you to consider the events of the war from a range of perspectives. I'm going to be asking you to write 3 letters as part of part 1 of this task. And so you're going to write 3 letters as though you are 3 different kinds of people. Okay? You're going to need to choose at least one event to talk about, and I'm going to show you a list that you can choose from here. But all 3 of the characters need to talk about this one particular event at the very least. So let's have a look at the table. The 3 letters you're going to write as though you are someone who represents the North Vietnamese. So that could be Ho Chi Minh, could be members of the Viet Minh or Viet Cong soldiers. So you might be a soldier who was involved in the Tet Offensive, for example. You might be a soldier who can talk about your experiences in the Cu Chi tunnels, okay, in the tunnel system. You might choose in the second letter to be someone who represents the US or the South Vietnamese. So you could be one of the presidents, whether it be Kennedy, Johnson, or Nixon. You could be an American or an Australian soldier, or you could be an American or Australian protester back home. And so they're going to see, those people are going to see the events very differently to a North Vietnamese soldier or a Viet Cong soldier. And so you'd be exploring the differences between their perspectives on the events. And the third letter, you're going to be a member of the foreign press. So you might have witnessed the events chosen, and you're going to report back home about what you have seen and the impact of the war on the soldiers. So you can pick any of these events over here on the right-hand side. You could have a look at guerrilla warfare. You can have a look at the Gulf Tonkin incident, which was right at the start of the war. The Tet Offensive or the My Lai massacre might be something that you want to explore in more detail. Imagine if you wrote letter number 2 as though you are Lieutenant Kelly, and maybe letter 1 might be you could be one of the soldiers who was supposed to be there on the day, but then you've heard that the village has been burnt down and everybody essentially killed as part of what the American soldiers did. So if you've got another event from the war that you'd like to explore, maybe you want to explore the moratoriums, for example, just come and talk to me about it, and I'm sure we can work out something there. So for part 1 of the task, you're writing 3 letters, you're writing from 3 different perspectives about the one event, okay, predominantly. And so I want you to consider the long and short-term effects of different events. For example, the My Lai massacre, obviously that had a massive effect on public opinion about the war. It also changed perceptions about soldiers rather than the governments who had been sending the soldiers there. So there's some fairly significant impacts on the war and the way that it was fought. In part 2, I want you to write a short commentary, basically where you'll have an opportunity to reflect on what you aim to communicate about how an individual or group was impacted by or how they responded to a particular historical event. So in your account, you would basically outline your reasons for choosing the particular voice and the format that you chose. So you can present this commentary part in a written, oral, or multimodal form. It should be roughly about 200 words. I think most people will just go for the written explanation, and that is perfectly fine. So you've got part 1, which is 3 short letters, and then part 2, which is a quite short commentary on why you chose those particular perspectives and how well you think you've communicated empathy through those letters. I'm going to change the due dates so that they are accurate for this year. But otherwise, check the dates on Sector, and then we can get straight to it.